Ayan. Got it. Okay. So, good evening. Good evening to everyone. Okay, so at least kompleto tayo. Ay, hindi, wala si Jilson. Wala si Jilson. So, I don't know what happened to Jilson. But, ano na lang, papasukin na lang natin siya pag dumating siya mamaya. Okay, so let's do the formalities first. So, welcome to Photography Chismis Kwentuhan sessions for tonight. And the topic would be AI imaging and challenging the index. So, this is an interesting topic, I guess, I mean, in general. I think people are interested in this, pero mamaya na we'll clarify some key aspects about this topic. And then, yun, some reminders, no, since we have also a visitor and later din naman to do the formalities. Okay, so this is a recorded Zoom session. You will be prompted by Zoom for your consent in recording of this material. Number 2, the recording shall be uploaded to Photography Chismis PH and its various platforms, such as, but is not limited to, but it's not limited to Facebook, YouTube, and recently Spotify for educational purposes in the aim of contributing to the discourse of photography in the Philippines. Next, big words, discourse. Anyway, tapos this episode of the Kwentuhan session shall not be monetized. So just to clarify then also, we're doing it for free. I mean, everyone participated in this program for free. So thank you for participating. And just to keep the integrity of this activity. So we'll not monetize this. However, derived knowledge from this program should be cited accordingly as applicable based on conventions and laws on intellectual property in the Philippines as applicable. So I'm doing that for those who will watch this after the recording, yung sa mga manonood nito when it gets uploaded. So I'm making that clear lang na please cite this. So, and then lastly, this Kwentuhan session is an informal discussion and it's not a lecture. So medyo different yung setup natin today. Comments and questions shall be recognized accordingly by the host and moderator as applicable. So last week kasi we had a lot of questions from the audiences. Okay, so so reminders and notices, we are done. And a little bit of plugging. So just last night or yesterday, I mentioned Photography Chismis PH is now on Spotify. So those who are currently with us and also those who are going to see this when this gets uploaded. So it's available on Spotify. Look for Photography Chismis PH. Okay, yan, formalities done. And yan. So AI imaging and technology. Okay, yan na. So let's do the intro spiel. So guys, thank you for coming. So why are we here? So yun, so there has been much talk about AI in the field of photography. So again, this is Photography Chismis. So that makes this discussion more directed towards that specific field. But the interest on this topic leads some observers to ask, is it just a trendy issue, or is it really a concern that has real implications in the practice and conception of photography in the Philippines? Tonight, we tackle some key areas of discussion in the hope of providing some foundational basis in the idea of AI imaging and its contingent outcomes. Para ako academic dun sa spills ko, di ba? So thank you for joining us tonight for episode 2 of Marites Talks, Kwentuhan sessions on Philippine photography entitled AI Imaging and Challenging the Index. We have, nagano pala nag-auto, nakita ka na. We have Mr. Jeryc Garcia, Angela Silva, well, Jilson is going to join later, Verzosa, and Joseph Desmond Cruel. Yan. So thank you for joining us tonight. Para akong host, no? So, so para akong Boy Abunda of photography. Yes, yun ang picture track ko. Boy Abunda ng photography. So okay, to start with, in the first place, so broad strokes muna. What is AI imaging? So, Sir Joseph, you want to, ano?
Yeah. So I'll do my best to explain a very complex topic. But I think AI imaging and what is very popular right now, and I think the subject of a lot of discussion, is a part of AI imaging called text-to-image technology, where you take text descriptions or prompts in order for you to generate an image from that specific prompt. Now, the technology is a machine learning technology. A lot of computers have been trained on a billion, probably terabyte of amount of data already. Uh, using what you call a text to image pair, where a specific image has a specific text description, and then the computer, who is very good at remembering things and making relationship with those descriptions, is able to call those images back to create a new image. Now, um, to simplify things, I think you can think of it like there's two supercomputers or two neural networks. One will diffuse the image or your description. It will take your natural language description, break it down, look for the image using that relationship, and then another network will take that diffused image and make it unblurred or undiffused, and there you have a new image which is produced that is trying to take what you described initially as a prompt. So applications like Midjourney use the same technology. OpenAI's DALL-E is using that same technology, and the open source Stable Diffusion is using the same technology. Now, there are a lot of different types of diffusion models and a lot of types of imaging models, but basically, if you break it down to the most simplest form, that's how a computer creates an image out of a text. It does not know, it is not aware about what a dog is or what a car is. It basically just remembers a car with this description was stored somewhere in that big database, and this prompt is calling that image that I have in my memory back. So if you have a lot of these descriptors in your prompt, you have the possibility of joining all those images it has learned, and it will try to replicate it back. It will undiffuse it, and that's the image that you will generate. Now, I think where we're at right now is a lot of people have become sophisticated enough to call for something, referring to various artists whose work is on the web, who's been trained by the neural network has been trained on their work. That if you ask somebody in the prompt to look for that specific artist or join it with this specific photographer, it can recall certain aspects, maybe not the same, but call it back. So you'll have a montage. I think that's the best way to describe it. A montage. It is not a photocopy. It is a montage. So if you have more words or text description in your prompt, you will probably call more of these images that it has learned. So I think it's learning. It is one of the technology. I think I read somewhere that it is one of those computer technologies that's not linear anymore. So I think when we're used to computers, we're used to train them and say, okay, if I do step one, it will do step two, and then it will do step three. I think AI imaging technology or AI technology for that matter is not linear anymore because it's learning. So it can jump from step 1 to 5 based on what it's already learned from us or learned in the past. So I think, I think that's text to image technology, and um, most of the artwork right now in ArtStation or like what Sir Jeryc was saying, being submitted is actually generated from that technology.
So Joseph, so so the way
Yeah.
you described AI, at least AI imaging. So doon muna tayo, I guess. So kasi AI technology in itself in terms of applications to film, to language, madami na siya. I mean sound,
Yeah.
'di ba? So specifically for now, AI imaging, at least sa domain of AI imaging, the
Yeah.
way you described it, it feels like you're describing an automaton. Parang when I say automaton, na parang this is something of a parang a brain that you feed information into, and then it gets to learn. So yun yung siguro parang basic way of picturing it. And the way it is described, it feels like it's acting like it's acting like similar to a kid who's growing up trying to understand things abstractly, and then putting those images from the memory, it's yung parang yung neural networks niya, and then making an amalgam of that understanding of the text and the image, and creating parang a connection, a neural connection, or a network connection of that of that process. So medyo malapit ba dun yung parang, I guess, parang vernacular description natin, or at least parang medyo malapit
Yeah,
naman.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, yes. At our point in technology, yes. It's still I wouldn't even say it's a small kid, because small kids can read faces, or they can take body language already. Uh, Neural networks right now, especially the one used for these, are basically just machines that remember a lot of things, the description of a lot of things. And if you join those descriptions together, it'll do its best to do a montage of what it thinks you're trying to describe. So let's say proprietary software like Midjourney have specific flags that manipulate this diffusion. So if you use Mid Journey, there are those dash V dash A aspect ratio and those specific flags to point the model they've trained to a specific direction. But I've used Stable Diffusion for a few months now, the 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 open source one, and it's very like Linux. It takes a lot of more wrangling than a Mid Journey. So yes, right now I don't think it's like you said nga, maybe Tony parang sentient, hindi pa.
Yeah.
I don't think it's thinking. It's very good at giving us something we asked back in a very fast and sleek way, siguro.
Siguro yung ano rin kanina before we started the discussion, parang we even, I mean, I know I even mentioned the term parang the universal mind, parang gano'n,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
parang Skynet in the future, 'di ba? Pero sige, since we're not there yet, siguro next question ko, ito naman, I'll direct this to Angela, no. So in many of your talks, at least in the talk that I was able to join, you mentioned that the artistic creation is usually not defined. I guess so in the creation of art, you usually look into the heart, the hand, and the head. And yung last mo nun is the combination of all those things. So given that way of assessment, or value judgment of what is art and how to appreciate art, when you talk about AI imaging, how do you how do you how do you find the human part in AI imaging, in the sense that it's being, it's an amalgam of different images. Then you do a text prompt, and then it gives you back an output, or an image as an output. So in that framework, so how do you find the human in AI imaging? So ay, Angela, naka-mute ka. Ayan. Yan.
You're asking me, right? Because
Yes. Kasi ikaw yung alam ko na yun yung framework mo sa works mo eh.
okay, I can only talk about myself and my practice.
Yes.
And your question was, so how can I tell the human after I've gone through the exercise of head, hand, heart. Okay.
And how, if for example, I mean, if that is the measure or the process of creating art, so how do you find the human aspect in AI imaging, given that where is the head, where is the hand, where is the heart? So yun yung connection, I guess.
What I've only seen, very cursory, and only after you invited me to join this panel about artificial intelligence, then I started to read up on it. And my initial biases was not for me, because from what I've seen that's been generated, and again, as Joseph said, it's very preliminary. It's only the start. What did I see? Kind of like avatars, comic book, renderings, selfies. And then it was like, yeah, it's so not human, but it is something that people were having a lot of fun. There's a novelty to it. There's a quick, grasp of the program, and it's taking off. But if there were, and that would have to get into the creative exercise that most, I hope, artists do, at least I do. There's a conceptual element to what we make, and our intentions. I would now look at AI if I wanted to generate fictional possible combinations, compositions, colors, things like that, after I feed in my selected images. So using the technology, I respect the question, the big question out there right now, which is like, they're stealing from a database from artists who did not give their permission. I'm not going to argue about that anymore. There are lawsuits. Are they frivolous or not? But when it comes to my work and me judging others, I still think it's very artificial. I cannot see a hand or a heart because they're just generated images and they're all starting to look the same. So, I don't know. However, in fine art, in the fine art world, galleries, I'm talking about galleries, auction houses. In 2018, $500,000 from Christie's auction for an AI-generated piece by a group of French artists. So it's happening. It's no longer just NFTs, but it's now AI-generated art. My question back to this panel and to everybody else is, if you want to be the artist or the author of the work, are you going to put your name? Are you going to be honest and transparent about the tools you used to generate it or not? So it's claiming a little bit of the head, hand, heart, but putting it in a context of transparency or honesty or truth. Those are all questions that we're going to have to address for ourselves.
So siguro so Angela, good point yun na merong I guess one of the highlight of what you said is yung transparency of if in case you are going to participate in this kind of image of art making. O sige, image making muna kasi yung that term art making is a bit loaded in the sense that it's going to be circuitous in a sense because siguro mamaya kung may mag-join or gusto mag-input ng definition of art, baka we can discuss that further. Pero since you went to that trajectory of transparency, siguro I'll direct siguro yung next question to Sir Jeryc, which is Sir Jeryc is an artist and also a teacher, and also Jake, because Jake is doing AI imaging, given that his field is basically he's in the field of photography. So, and then siguro just an additional part lang before we go siguro kay Sir Jeryc and Sir Jake. Yung siguro we should distinguish din siguro a closed system and also an open system, no, Joseph? I think for some of the AI imagers, how the way they tackle this head, heart, and hand is the idea of training a closed system, meaning the AI images that you're deriving your work from is your own images. So parang nangyayari, binigay mo dun sa AI sa machine yung existing work mo, and then you train that based on that imaging, no? So
Yes.
you want to add something to that, Joseph?
Yeah.
Or-
Actually, I tried doing that. I run Stable Diffusion locally, and
Yan.
I use Dream Booth to train on specific images. So mine, I was doing tests, let's say on a local celebrity who's not that popular, and so if you call her as a text prompt, the whole database won't recognize her because she probably is a new actress or she's not in the database. Or us in the Philippines, we're not very used to tagging or describing images really. We don't, it's not a discipline we have, unlike, let's say, in other countries where images are meta tagged. Descriptors are really laid out. So, I called on architectural prompts, local architectural buildings, local movie stars, except for a few, like the really popular ones in social media, you won't find them. But I agree. I try to run locally, training on an image, but computationally, it's a lot of resources, and we're looking at graphics cards that cost like a secondhand car, or you need a lot of space in your computer, or you probably need to run a CPU, to run this locally. That's why most of these apps, commercially available, run from the cloud, where it's a data farm of processors running it. Yeah, but I agree. Modestly, let's say you have your own work, a lot of your own digitized images, you can run it in locally in your PC, a modest powered PC, and it'll just take a few more days, not minutes, or maybe click on that button and it'll come back tomorrow. But it's trained, and then you merge that checkpoint, that model, with the one from open source, like let's say from Stable Diffusion. You merge that, and then you run your prompts locally. Then you have a montage of something you created, along with the billions or trillions of images already indexed in the database. So yeah, like what Angela was saying, the definition of a hand or a heart, maybe may not be, needs to be redefined. And also, like you said, transparency, because um well, ever since I used it, and if I share it, I always say where I did it on, and it's I usually caption it with as I did with, so at least people will know. Oh, okay, AI generated this. Maybe if they like it, maybe it's the thought that came into the image, like, oh, okay, I used a Metallica lyrics of a Metallica song, and this is what came out. I don't know, but yeah.
Okay. So siguro alphabetical. So Sir Jeryc muna, then siguro Sir Jake. So pasensya na. So alphabetical para walang sama ng loob.
sabihin ko sa age before beauty.
Ladies first.
Oh.
Ladies first.
So again, I think the question was, again, just to be clear, Donnie, I think the question was what?
The question was, given this idea of the hand heart, how do we now navigate? Siguro, I guess, how do we navigate in terms of, in your case, you're a teacher. You mentioned a while ago that when you do a portfolio, when you teach students in doing a portfolio, and also in the professional world, if you submit a portfolio of work, should we include it in the first place? Should we include AI art as part of your portfolio? And if we do, should we identify it specifically that this part parang may asterisk there? And then yung kay Jake naman siguro, specific kay Sir Jeryc yung kay Jake naman, na siya na-navigate niya. I mean, he's navigating it right now then. So then after that siguro we go to Angela, and siguro kasi I saw parang ngayon nag-open sa Silver Lens, Corinne de San Jose. She's doing cyanotypes and AI. So parang that's interesting, no? So pero prioritize tayo yung nandito eh. Sige. So Sir Jeryc muna.
I think with regard to the portfolio, again, we are talking about the portfolio of artists and designers here. And okay, just to further complicate things, di ba? When we talk about AI art, my first question is, ano nga ba ang art? Di ba? I mean, really. So, di ba, once you answer that question, once it's clear to you what art is, then you can probably now move into the realm of, okay, so does my work qualify as, well, art? Then not even, parang it doesn't, I think the AI part is secondary, because I think the more important thing here is that, is it art? Especially if you're an artist or a designer whose work is art and design. So can you actually call it art or design, right? And so again, maybe we'll pick that up again later, because that question alone of what is art is actually already complicated enough, and a criteria is already a criteria for what you need, what you can consider adding to a portfolio. Pero kanina, I think just to go back to yung kanina before we began this, I was sharing that the students are now asking, can they add AI generated art into their portfolios? And I think for me, okay, as far as my position on AI is really, I don't see, apart from the issues regarding where the sources, where the art is being sourced, and all it's okay. I'm fine with AI. It's a tool, right? That's all it is. It's a tool. And so the tools can go two ways, right? Tools can actually really help you out and basically make your process more efficient, or it can be a crutch. Most of the time, especially now, especially with AI specifically, it's becoming a crutch. Which but I know somehow, if you're an artist, if you're a designer, and this is you are getting paid for your expertise in these fields, and to use AI as a form of a crutch is, well, ano ba, downsizing. Well, not really, being honest. Actually, dun yun eh. I think for me that's the whole, if we're going to talk about dishonesty, there's a dishonesty in that as well. That are you claiming that that this is your creation? Interesting enough, so I have been looking at the AI posts in social media, and the artists are sort of calling out other artists who do not specify that their art is AI. The creation is AI. So now there is the community is coming together now, I think, to really sort of police this. But definitely it cannot be completely policed. Some, as like what Joseph was saying, as the tool gets better, it is going to really come up with more realistic, more convincing work. Case in point, I mean, remember that artist who submitted a painting and it won in this contest? I mean, I don't know really how, kung paano nakalampas yun. What were the judges looking at? What was again, in contests, I usually ask, so what was the criteria? I don't usually jump into it. That's wrong. But you have to ask, what's the criteria? How did it get through the judges' filter, right? And so, I mean, going back to the portfolio right now, I would recommend that. Well, yes, if you add AI art to your portfolio and add it not as a tool, not as you used AI art not as a tool to make you more efficient, but a crutch, then it's a double-edged sword at this moment, because again, if you ask people on the street, I guess half of them would say AI is good, and half of them would say AI is evil. But if you probe deeper, why is it good? How is it evil? They usually don't know they don't usually have any answers. And so it's a double-edged sword. Actually, Russian roulette siya ngayon. And so if either you're a designer or an artist who is just starting out, or you're a professional artist who's already created, a lot of work, which is not AI, and you're getting into this, I think you should really get into this with both eyes open and really all your senses activated, because this can go sideways very quick. And for example, if you're a more established artist and you create art that AI created, and then you pass it off as your own work, because think about it, there's no way that, for example, an artist like, say, ano ba, sino bang magandang artist? Let's say a comic book artist would say, generate a new character in the style of me, right? My own work. And so if the AI engine actually generates a new character in the style of this artist, and it's really passable, then that artist could actually just release it into the world and say, hey, look, this is my new creation, this is my new character, right? So it's that. So again, so now, okay, fine. If that artist says, if that artist gets found out, and then he says, but but it's in my style. So ano to, self-plagiarism ba to? Or, di ba? Or am I being dishonest? How can I be dishonest? This is my style, right? So a lot of people, that's going to polarize any followers that he has. Some would say, I would say, wow, that is actually brilliant, diba? For you to think of that, because now what's happening is that artist is actually making his work efficient, right? He's not using it as a crutch, because again, technically, if we're going to be strict about it, if we're going to again use the self-plagiarism card, then maybe that's going to be problematic. But if he sees it as part of his process, part of, again, because it's, for example, I guess parang one way that you could actually use AI right now is to generate backgrounds, maybe, right? Na para bang if you don't have to plot it out. It's Eiffel Tower, middle of whatever, diba? So it's easy to actually create a background for something, right? So yun eh. So, parang yun. Right now, but I would recommend for most people who cannot see how they're going to control this if it goes sideways, is just totally avoid it. Maybe be honest. You can't make that kind of high level work yet. And so just be honest about it. Or again, the other side is, if you're going to use it as a crutch, then also be honest about it. So that's on that. Maybe well, we can pick that up again later. Tony, nakamute ka. Tony, you're on mute.
Tony, you're on mute.
Tony, you're mute.
Tony, nakamute ka.
Ay, sorry. So yun, so Jeryc, so after Jeryc, I'll go to Jake, and then I'll go to Angela, kasi si Angela may input siya. So and then we go to Joseph. So siguro yung navigating through this dichotomy, na actually hindi nga siya, parang Russian roulette niya in a way. Tapos parang nangyayari kasi, one of the observations, it's usually the artist and the photographer who has a lot of things to say, pero when you go to the fields of product design, or siguro even architecture, yung inspirational part of it, na parang pwede mo kasing i-model yon, parang to jumpstart yung creative juices mo, and also some inspirational purposes. The other fields are okay with it. Ang malaking issue siya actually is on in photography and art. So yun. So I guess, so we heard Sir Jeryc, then we go to Jake, and then Angela, and then we go to Joseph. So specifically, how do we navigate given that it's all amorphous, and parang tug and pull siya between the yung dulo, yung spectrum of beliefs. So Jake, specifically you, kasi you're a photographer, so
Yeah, okay, I'm glad nga na discuss niyo yung ni Joseph, ni Mamanji, sa Jeryc lahat ng art side of the discussion. Kasi for me naman, ako kasi I've been a photographer for like 20 years and I've been practicing like my documentary practice for more than a decade na rin. So, ayun, kwento ko lang din, when this AI tool came out, parang may, for me, maraming possibilities o ideas. Parang, kasi when, at present, when yun nga, pag ginagawa ko yung work ko, it's the present. So, nung lumabas ng tool na to, parang para sa akin, what other ideas can I show through photography na hindi kaya nung current na technology natin, which is you have to go there and shoot and ano. So parang yun, lahat ng ideas na meron ako is about the past and the future. So yun, I did some work na parang what if we can breed orchids, for example, and ano yung magiging itsura. Parang those things na medyo malaki yung data set, hindi mo magagawa yun through the current ngayon, like in photography. So parang may mga ganung bagay na malaki data set and it's only possible through AI to produce images na ganun. And that's where I'm interested. Yung mga siguro yung possibilities dun sa, for example, sa biology side. And yun nga, yung past, yung siguro yung mga lost na history natin. What if parang may pwede tayong gawin na, or what if ano yung mga images na pwedeng nangyari nung time na to? Parang ganun. Parang it's more of yung lahat nung siguro amazing dun sa history natin, you can recreate through images from the data set. And like Joseph din, parang tinry ko rin na to create my own models. Using the as you said, parang may problema sa GPU and sa power, but parang I found a way din na you can use Google Drive to train your own models, ganyan. And ayun, that's where I am now. And parang rin, so hindi ko alam kung for me kasi hindi ko siya ma-define if it's art or not, pero I'm excited sa fact na I can train my own models with my images and see what comes out. Parang,
Yes.
Yung interesting so before we go to the other so siguro
Yeah.
lang sinabi ni Jake na parang interesting with in your case, Jake, aside from you being a documentary photographer, is that when you describe AI art, in a way parang it's a documentarist mindset, in the sense that, for example, one of the applications that you mentioned is creating time and reality wherein photography was not yet available. Like, for example, historical events in, for example, Magellan's time. Parang that's interesting in the sense that your mindset is a photographer, pero since the assumption is during that time wala pang photography, you're parang taking a picture of that time na hindi available ang camera, and then you're trying to create a documentation or a documentary photograph of that time. Parang that's I mean that's quite interesting na parang you're filling in the gaps of the document in a documentary manner, yung history and also spaces of experience, in the sense na siguro parang how does Jose Rizal look like when was a baby. Parang mga interesting questions. So parang it's full of opportunity and yet it's still documentary. That's interesting.
And the way I see it, parang yun nga, there's a whole new parang questions and ideas na pwede mo explore through AI. So thinking about it as art or not, parang hindi ko siya iniisip ngayon ganun. Parang I want to explore kung what ideas can we tackle with this technology.
Tony, just to liven things up, can I ask a question?
Wait, nauna ko.
No, you can continue after this is something that we can add on to later. So just for this Jake. So but do you still call it a photograph?
Actually,
no, I don't call it a photograph.
Yeah. So again, escalation. Anyway,
Mamaya,
Next.
ano yan, sa intexicality, mapunta tayo dyan mamaya. Yung escalation, dahan-dahan yung conception of reality, creation of image. Okay, sige. So next would be si Angela, I guess. So when it comes to navigating and also parang input on this parang amorphous thing that we call AI imaging. How do we navigate through it? I mean, on it. I mean, through it.
Okay, just briefly, I do have to make a statement, a comment on Jake's recent works that he shared on Instagram. Jake, you're doing a series on the disco scene, and people,
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, when I think about head, hand, heart, it's also the takeaway. What is the result that I get from looking at somebody's work or even my own work, and I look for the head, the hand, the heart. What do I leave that work with? What am I left with? I'm changed. That to me is art. I'm changed in some form. So when I was looking at your work, Jake, I mean, seriously, I was like, holy cow, what if? Yeah, no, I remember. Oh my God, it looks so good. It looks so. Where these images come from, Jake, except that you made it up, and yet your database was brown faces and bodies and the 60s and 70s disco scene. I mean, it was so imaginative, but at the same time, it did change me as a viewer, okay? Because I was connecting with it in so many ways, which is what we hope somebody who looks at our works, photographs or videos or movies or even music, will be affected and changed. So I had to do a shout out to Jake's work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I mean, if you look at,
Thank you, Angela.
but I'm assuming, and maybe you can
Mhm.
just quickly check, your input of texts is so well done because you're a photographer, and I'm assuming you could enter the right technical terms for the lighting and the staging and whatever. I'm not a photographer, but I can only imagine that you would have that technical skill, the same way that Joseph had mentioned earlier, that you're only as good what you enter with specificity. So if I go back now to how I navigate it, what I'm likely to do in my own practice is, number one, not likely to do much, because my content, my head, hand, and heart is all tied around telling personal stories. I have so many stories. I don't need to make anything up. I don't need to make a character alive again, unless I really wanted to create a fictional video. Maybe, my grandmother who's dead talking. I find that so creepy, but that's okay. I don't want to go there. I don't need to. I want to explore with my own hand how to tell my stories and find an emotional connection. I will talk about the other works, which is not the cyanotype series that you might have seen in Photomoto, but I'm also a printmaker. And I think, Tony, you wanted me to mention how printmaking as a medium, a visual art medium, is closer. Jerry, you and I know this as printmakers. It's closer to the index. What we make in our head with our hand in the process is so tied together. It's so process driven. We don't need AI to make anything up, except if I want it as a starting point for generating possible ideas, composition, colors, or whatever. Then yes, it's only a tool. And in printmaking then, as a tool, it has applications, because I've seen in the style of a woodblock, in the style of a dry point, these are all processes, in the silk screen style of Andy Warhol. Yes, we can feed that in. For printmaking, possibility. It's less, for me, personal, not my cyanotype work, but more process and coming up with so many variations on a theme very quickly. Then AI could be a tool. I may not have to say generated by AI, because the process of printmaking will be so specific. I can say I'm the artist, I'm the printmaker. No need to mention AI, no need to mention the tools. So that's addressing transparency. I hope that answers your question because I'm full of it. Back to the group, and I'll jump in later with more questions.
So so just to let everyone know for the audiences and also for the rest of the participants tayong yung sa discussion. So ito yung sinasabi ni Angela. I'm not sure if it's showing up. So wait
Yes, it is.
Yes.
okay. Yan. So yun yung sinasabi ni Angela na parang these are AI generated images of Jake and the disco scene, di ba? So ano to, para I won't add na lang muna, pero ito 'yon yung sinasabi ni Angela na work ni Jake. And then Jake, okay lang ba pinakita ko so sensya na. Tapos
talaga.
ayan. Tapos when it comes to to going to Angela's main point, she touched on the intentionality partly. I mean, just to siguro trying to absorb what Angela said. In terms of the intentionality of, for example, if I decide that AI would help me create my work, then it's valid. So I think related din siya sa sinasabi ni Sir Jeryc kanina na when you use it, parang it's also going to depend na you have to be transparent. Are you using it as a crutch or is it really parang a tool of exploration and also a tool of creation of the validity comes out of that idea that are you really being honest as an artist? Are you using it as a tool or are you using it as a crutch? So I guess medyo kinonect ko lang yung idea ni Angela and Jeryc in the sense that if Angela, she said that as a printmaker, if I decide that my art is about the materiality, diba? The physicality of creating prints, then maybe I can consider AI art regardless of my biases, diba? So ano yun? So ganun yung discussion na parang if I'm an artist and then I decide intentionally that since my work is printmaking and I want to integrate AI art, then that becomes in a way parang a source of validity on using AI. Pero kung sabihin natin na if you're an artist and you decide to use AI as again yung term ni Jeryc as a crutch, then there's a big question mark because even in the professional fields, so not in the gallery system, in the professional fields of design, diba? And art creation. I mean, kasi yung term ng art din kasi magkaiba sa art for commerce in a way and then art in the gallery system, diba? Pero later we'll go into that, parang kating-kating na si Sir Jeryc dun sa gallery system, diba? Talaga indexical na yan pagdating sa Pero regardless, so I'm just highlighting that na magandang input talaga ni Angela. I mean everyone so far na the intentionality of using AI. That's the validity in a way. Parang that's the validity of the framework that when we can discuss this about. Kasi if you're using it as a parang daya, then it becomes invalid in a way, diba? So and siguro from there we go to Joseph, kasi sa work mo, I mean you're a technologist. Your work is really to find an intersection between art making, image making, technology, broadcast media, television. I mean, diba? So how does it affect your work? I mean, how do you navigate through that conception of AI?
Thanks, Tony. Actually, I have a lot of similar, with Jake, what Jake was saying kanina. Right now, I'm also agnostic when it comes to AI, whether it's art or not. Basically, I use AI mostly as a what do you call parang serendipity machine it's something I use to di ba they say na as an artist or as a creative we're limited by the availability of what we know pero if you have access to, let's say, all this knowledge, all this description, baka one way or the other a text prompt might initiate an idea you've never really thought. It's a way for me to get out of that availability bias that we have. Parang, just to give you an example, like let's say, okay, I'm not saying it's being done, but let's say, how come all the TV shows or all the movies they look the same or they have the same storyline. What if you use the AI machine, the text description, or to generate something not usually joined together, and it comes up with a log line for a movie. I don't know. Maybe it can be used that way, or let's say, hey, why don't you generate a movie idea that will appeal to all audiences? I know it's going to be tough, but hey, maybe let's see what the AI comes up with. Because I may have availability bias that cannot be done, but maybe the machines, it's just the machine, won't have that. So yeah, so I've been like what Jake mentioned kanina, I've been looking into historical fiction. Like, what if the British didn't leave Manila in the 19th century? What if they never turned us over back to the Spanish? How will architecture look? Will we have Victorian Manila? So, I asked the AI to generate what would Manila look like if it was Victorian.
Wow.
So yeah, and then that sparked the idea, maybe I can write a movie idea for that. What if the British didn't leave, and then we had the same problems that Victorian London had, because we were in the same government, or we faced the same biases, we faced the same persecution.
They
So
call it
like
India.
like, like what Jake was
Yeah.
saying, maybe it's an alternate history that we have that we never really thought, because we were only open to the available data we had. That's a tool for me. So maybe in broadcast or media and entertainment can be used that way. It'll be faster to do costume designs. What would a Victorian uh, lady's dress would look like if it came from a Spanish influenced uh,
And
that
even
London never
storyboarding,
had.
di ba?
Yeah, storyboarding can be, what would a Filipino futuristic police uniform look like based on these ideas? But I never claimed that it just sparks your imagination or creativity. Then maybe you can do something with your hands, with your head, with your heart. Maybe
Yeah.
it's just a tool.
Yeah.
So um, to take off where Sir Jeryc was saying kanina, how do we know if it's do you submit it, or do you to take off on that? Kasi parang I think we have the same problem musicians had in the 90s, where when electronic music came out, and and people were saying that's not music, that's not playing the brass, or that's not playing the trumpet, that's a synthesizer, that's a sampled sound. And then Bjork and those people in Britain had that same problem. No, 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 that's not music. So all of them all of them went into London, and that's where that scene popped up, trip hop, and lo-fi started. But just to take off on what Jeryc was saying, if you are being measured as a musician in playing the violin, you can't use AI, because you're being measured when you play the violin, not the sound alone. You know,
Yes.
no, if it was music, yeah, grab a few beers, let's listen to what you created using AI. That's fine. But if a teacher will grade you for your skill as a violin player, then you can't use AI. And I think I think that's where a lot of maybe some of the students have a misconception. In music, the technology was very slow. It was sampled, but we don't have that in the current technology so fast. They can generate an image really fast, realistic. You can take that's the only difference. But I think if you're being judged as a musician, then I think, unless you say that you're an electronic musician,
Yeah.
then okay, okay, I'll judge you as an electronic musician. But if you claim you're a violinist, like a very famous one, and then you sampled it, or you asked the AI to generate it for you, maybe a composition, then maybe that's another story. So I think that might qualify if you're being judged on a particular aspect of your creatives.
So so siguro so far the discussion is going into this on the accommodative camp. Siguro I want siguro yung the way we're discussing it right now, at least the trajectory that we went to is that intentionality and contextual usage parang gives some level of validity, some weight of validity to AI art regardless if it's in an artistic expression or professional work, professional creative work. So in those cases, parang in a way, if you contextualize any claim that you make and the framing of AI art, if you do it contextually, then there's a way of processing it and assessing it and maybe validating it and legitimizing siguro. Pero siguro just to siguro give a little bit of parang pampagulo. What if, for example, well, just to recognize, so Jilson is here. So Jilson, so or busy or maingay ba dyan? So
And nasabay na.
nasa bahay na. Okay.
Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, Jilson. So
Hello.
So Jilson, okay lang ba naka-set up ka na? Kasi mangyayari sa'yo ko babato yung tanong eh. Kaya ba?
Nasabay na.
So pwede ka na, I mean, I can throw parang a question sa iyo na.
Yeah.
Okay, sige.
Of course.
Siguro ganito. Kasi yung most of the discussion medyo accommodative eh. So hindi talaga, I mean, it's either agnostic pero leaning towards accommodative na parang baka pwede natin contextualize yung usage, di ba? Tapos maraming parang asterisk in a way. Pero on the other side of the discussion naman, I think informally or parang casually, you parang in one of your posts about AI, you mentioned that you're excited about AI and at the same time it scares you. So do you want to parang explain on that fear, I guess, that parang the unsettling feeling of AI imaging becoming too photorealistic. Siguro yung fear side naman. Siguro let's try to unravel or at least explore yung scary side naman. So and then later we'll siguro discuss about the implications to competition. So diba, yung I guess one of the concerns then of AI art on the other side is that when we apply this, I mean we can see na you can frame it this way and that way na it can be accommodated. Pero in the real world, what part of it becomes cheating na you don't declare it? I mean, let's say people are not transparent, and then aside from that, even if whether they describe it as a crutch or not, they get paid for it. So yun yung mga question of competition, diba? So pero nevertheless, we go back to Jilson first now. So in a way, I think you're also excited, but in one of your posts you mentioned that it also is there's an unsettling feeling of knowing that AI art can generate photorealistic images.
At so far parang last nakikita ko sa AI art ngayon, medyo nandun pa sa talaga baby stage pa lang talaga eh. Baby stage pa lang siya. And I think really AI art cannot replace photojournalism. I think. Do you agree? Kasi photojournalism, it's happening right now. And AI, it's just swimming into pools of what's already been taken. And para siya, I think of it as an AI, the internet as juice of the AI. And then parang lalabas yung juice na yun as art, di ba? When you type something. So I think yun yung pinaka okay. Wait lang ah. Sorry.
Sige. So parang hina-highlight ni Jilson would be photojournalism. So in a way parang that tradition or at least that convention of photographic usage or application. Syempre it might not parang yun yung parang area of photographic discipline that you will, I mean, as of now, you will not be able to replace. But in a way, for me, I mean, if we're going to be, sabihin natin on the ano naman, on the negative side, even the conceptions of reality, historical uh, veracity, it's kasi parang in a way, just the
Ayan,
same
I'm back.
that you can use parang AI imaging to fill in or at least have parang historical fiction na lang siguro. I mean, para mas broad yung term, yung if we create historical fiction, that documentary photography won't be able to fill, obviously, because it's the past. Then siguro later we can discuss na parang what happens to our idea of truth, 'di ba? Yung the conception of truth. So, Jilson, you want to continue dun sa sinasabi mo about AI art or AI imaging cannot replace documentary photography?
Yes, it really cannot. And if you use it as a replacement, I think it's really fraud. It will be fraud. You should declare that this is AI art. And now, very stark pa yung difference ng AI image compared to a real one, especially if you look at the hands. That's why most of the AI art crop the hands because AI cannot read the finger, ganyan. But you can easily, I think some people can easily correct it sa Photoshop. But yun nga, AI is just swimming into this juice of what's already created. And ang big thing dyan na it's really bad. It's not only in photography that's really bad. It's in the art world, like yung mga artists. Because some AI really based on previous work. Like if you type, you can create a Monet style painting, 'di ba? You can create some other um style of painting. Like may kilala akong um artist sa Instagram na pinatanggal talaga niya yung name. He contacted the developer of Midjourney and DALL-E 2 to remove his name sa pag-generate ng AI generated art. So may mga ganun na nangyayari. So basically most of the AI art that's being produced right now is basing on original work of other artists and this is without consent. Sabi nga nila 'di ba parang inspiration lang tayo naman as humans 'di ba? We use we see images, we see artworks, we see other stuff na as inspiration, and that inspiration will be our creative juice to create our own rendition of this specific type of art. But it's different. It's different from this machine that has no soul. Like, can you say no soul? So parang ganun yung nakikita ko na parang cons niya, and also cons yung mga yun nga falsifying the history, 'di ba? Marami ako nakitang images na lumalabas na hindi nila dine-declare kung um past image ba to or anything. I really appreciate AI art. Don't get me wrong. I love that ordinary people can create art. Like hindi na ordinary people, like people who doesn't know how to photograph, people who doesn't know how to draw, people who doesn't know how to render those amazing images, can create art like now, like Canva, 'di ba? Um, it helps people na hindi literate sa InDesign, sa Photoshop. It makes their life easier. So I think it's the same with Midjourney. Na it's a good thing, and also it can be put in the bad hand. So yun, I think yun yung tingin ko na masama So far parang yun pa lang yung nakita kong masama. But overall, positive yung outlook ko sa AI art kasi it cannot replace photojournalism.
Okay. So yung ano, so yung kay Jilson, in a way parang yun, he always goes back to the idea na at least in the photo documentary field or photo documentation, probably yun yung parang magiging ano siya, parang enclave of the photographer in the future kasi yun yung talagang dapat hindi matouch. I mean, with the emphasis on the dapat kasi iba yung dapat, yung intention, yung versus the real, diba? The actual what's happening. So that would be that's what I got from mostly from what Jilson said. But he also mentioned a lot of challenges, especially when it comes to veracity and also yung trueness. So siguro before I go to to connecting representing truth and indexicality, which is in a way that's one of the critical words that we introduced dun sa title. Before I go to that, siguro to recognize yung kay Angela. So you wanted to say something?
I was just reacting on so many different levels on what Jilson just said, which is, I'm just taking notes. It's really the society's responsibilities to humanity and to the citizens. Issues about privacy, legality, authenticity, when we need the truth in news and in journalism. There's the deep fake and made up, stories. So all those things, we're all just talking now about individual agendas and practices, but now, we could be thinking about the bigger picture about society and what's going to be the responsibility of the society and the culture to the citizenry, to humanity. That's, another topic maybe.
Yun, so from ang maganda rin naging parang trajectory natin na parang we try to view AI imaging and AI art siguro medyo mas broadly in specifically using the lenses that we use in our practice, diba, individually, as artists, as photographers, as designers, as industry people, diba? So that's how we started. And then pero now if we try to broaden it, siguro broaden the view and siguro move back, and then kasi na-mention din ni Jilson when it comes to the people who are, how parang meron siya na-touch on the idea of AI imaging, making imaging easier. So, and specifically, it is applied to those people who are not in the practice, unlike us, diba? So we're artists, we're technologists, yung research work ni Joseph specifically for ABS, and photographers. So yun, so we're professional. So in a way, parang we can contextualize the usage and in relation to intentionality of using AI imaging. Pero for the democratic, siguro parang democratic framing of AI imaging is that it puts the ability to create photorealistic images in the hands of people who are not trained how to handle it. Kasi in a way, parang tayo, we are part of our training aside from the technique, it's the ethics, diba? So in a way, parang we judge our work on how we contribute, how we practice it in relation to a purposeful, parang may purposeful value to what we do. Pero for other people, what's keeping me from making a pornographic image of using yung face of someone and then putting that face in a parang another body, diba, yung concept, yung idea of deep fake. And then aside from that, parang in at least in the areas of the academia, so si Sir Jeryc at saka ako, we in our classes we also discuss about we are actually in the period of post-truth. Parang it does not necessarily question if truth exists. We're just saying that we've moved past it. So we're not actually assigning a positive or affirmative and a negative value to it. We're just saying that we've moved past truth. We're post-truth na parang that can only happen in this specific era of human civilization, di ba? Of knowledge. So when it comes to that, siguro I will introduce na siguro the term that I mean one of the critical terms that we use in the title, which is indexicality. And one of the more vocal academics who are trying to push this idea of indexicality is Sir Jeryc. So Sir Jeryc, would you want to discuss what is indexicality? So
Yeah. I'm gonna bore you with okay. And yun, the actually yung question kanina ko kay Jake kanina, whether he calls it a photograph, is actually related to this. Kasi di ba, when we look at photographs, basically, di ba, I mean, what is a photograph anyway, right? And dun pa lang, so yun, parang is for example, I can confidently say that AI generated art is AI generated photographs or not photographs. Okay. And yeah, this is now where we come into this whole idea of indexicality. So basically, again, indexicality is one of the three kinds of signs. Diba? Ito ay conception ni Charles S. Peirce, diba? So somebody smarter than all of us put together. Sinabi niya there are three kinds of signs basically. You have the icon. Again, first of all, signs. Ano nga bang signs? Basically, signs are things that we use to represent something else, right? So we are surrounded by signs. Every day, we look at signs and we pay no mind to signs kasi nga, naka-ingrained na siya eh. But there are basically Peirce is saying that there are three types of signs. The first kind of signs are the icons. Okay, and the icons are basically signs that resemble what they represent. Okay, so for example, if you think about it, photography is an icon, right? Kasi nga it resembles people. Diba ito, I mean, my face, your faces in this Zoom call, diba, is iconographic or iconic kasi nga they represent what people will actually see in real life. Okay. And then there is the symbol. So the symbols are basically signs that we agree as a society or as a culture that this is a symbol for this. Diba? So again, contextual and community-oriented, diba? Or culture-oriented ng symbols. For example, a symbol of mourning for us is to wear black, diba? But for the Chinese, they wear white. So those two symbols represent the same thing, but they actually are different, diba? My favorite of all symbols is the victory sign and the reverse victory sign, diba? And knowing where and when not to use the reverse victory sign, diba? And so again, we agree on it, diba? Basically, we agree on it that those are symbols. So indexes are quite special because ang requirement ng index is the sign has to be basically physically touched by the thing it represents. Merong physical connection sila. The most basic example of indexes are footprints. Diba? It's a sign of basically your foot. But to create a footprint, you have to have, diba, your foot really making that sign. So ganun din siya. So yun, diba? Fire, diba? Smoke is basically an index of fire. Diba? So again, we see the connection. So may causality. The sign is caused directly by the thing that it represents, and that's where photography actually comes in. Diba? If you ask, ano bang action? Diba? How is a photograph created? Basically, three things lang, three ingredients lang naman ang required for a photograph. You have light, you have time, and you have photosensitive surface. Okay? Cameras are actually out, di ba? You can make a photograph without a camera. You can make a photograph without a lens. Di ba? And so yun but yun na nga. So a photograph is actually special because it is both indexical and iconic. Di ba? Pero yun na nga, if you want to look at photographs talaga, as in photographs as we know photographs, they have to be both. And pinaka-importanting part is the indexicality part. Otherwise, it just looks like a photograph. So anong difference ng AI generated image sa isang hyper-realistic drawing? Right? So they look like photographs, but they're not photographs. Right? And this is the, oh yes, Miss Angela, let's entertain questions.
How about a hyper-realistic painting
Still
generated
not,
from a photograph? Why
Yeah,
would
again.
that be indexical?
still iconic because there's no touching, there's no direct really, there's no causality, direct causality.
Okay. What about a print? You and I are printmakers.
Oh yeah, here, okay, this is where it
Okay.
gets interesting. This is where it gets interesting. The index of a print is actually the matrix, right? So that's it. So there is again indexicality of the image, and they're actually in photography. Again, sorry for the very technical terms, but in photographs there are actually two kinds of indexes. The image is an index of what it represents, and the photograph itself is an index of the production methods that were used to create the photograph. And that's actually where printmaking and photography basically come together. The image created by in a photograph and the image created in a print, for example, lithographs, anything actually, is an index of the process used to create them.
Yes.
Diba?
Yes.
So diba, parang ganyan, I actually would extend it to the index of the gesture, especially for dry point. Diba? Every line I create is an index of that gesture that I made to create that line. So again, it's indexical in that way. Right? So that's it. So again, and so what again for me, I mean, this is important for me because I'm basically this is I'm a scholar of photography, and this is part of what I try to figure out. Right? And this is also now, I think I would argue that this is very important here in this time and place where AI is now really creating all these photorealistic images. Right? I don't know if you have, kasi yan, to link to Jilson's comments kanina, I don't know if you have heard of Jonas Bendixen's The Book of Venice. I mean, Bendixen is a photographer. Jonas Bendixen is actually a world-renowned photojournalist, right? And he created this book, basically of photographs that are all fake. But I mean, ang galing. I mean, look it up. I mean, I'm The Book of Venice.
Ganda nun, sobra.
Di ba? Yeah. Parang, I mean, Angela, yung reaction mo kanina dun sa work ni Jake sa disco, ako rin when I saw that, parang bang, whoa. I mean, di ba? I mean, but I had to ask. So, well, of course, it can't be real, quote unquote. Oh, by the way, another thing that I need to create a distinction with, when, for me anyway, again, another scholar may disagree with this, but for me, when I look at a photograph, I don't see truth, I don't see reality, I only see facts. Yeah, because again, truth is, what is truth anyway, right? What is truth? What is true for you may not be true for me. So does the photograph show truth? Probably not, because we both agree on what the photograph contains. It also, again, I have to argue that it doesn't also show reality, because diba, latest scientific research has sort of insinuated that reality only exists when we look at it. When we turn away, it ceases to become reality. May mga ganun-ganun na eh. Sorry. So again,
Is AI.
so facts.
Siguro to add dun, siguro to add dun sa sinasabi ni Sir Jeryc. So for the audiences, and also siguro for future audiences pag na-upload na tong video na to, siguro to parang give an idea. So in this conception of, I mean, in a traditional and classical sense, we think of truths as absolutes, diba? So, but in this case with Sir Jeryc and in contemporary philosophy also, so I think they were supposed to join. A philosopher was also supposed to join us, pero hindi naman nakaabot. Pero nevertheless, in contemporary philosophy and semiotics and linguistics, actually philosophy muna. And then what happened in contemporary times, in post-war, nagdevelop yung idea of contemporary philosophy, which highlights language as a site of reality. So once you say that language is a site of reality, then it becomes subjective, because languages are formed from communities, from individuals, and from individual subjects. And it challenges the idea of an absolute truth when we go to Greek and ano, diba? Yung even Kantian, diba? Yung classical, traditional, and also the modern, even the modern, yung kanila Kant, diba? That conception of reality is absolute. So merong a priori truth, which is, if interested ka sa philosophy, may truth na hindi mo kayang i-contest. Pero in contemporary period and postmodern era, which is post-war, there's a movement in terms of the idealism, the conception of the world and reality that is based on the use of language, and from this idea of language as something that frames reality. Kaya lumabas yung semiotics, semiology, post-structuralism, and Sir Jeryc, one of his specialty really is semiology and semiotics. So if you go aside from being an artist, one of the key focus of Sir Jeryc as an academician is the idea of semiology and how signs and symbols and language, more generally, defines how we conceive reality. And in the way he spoke, he conceives, or at least in the area or in the domain of semiology, truth is relative, and it is also supported by other fields of study. Even physics, diba, yung quantum theory, it says that things in the world and reality itself is relative depending on the observation, diba? Yung parang, siguro to give an example, diba, the ano pa nung cat na yun, yung
Schrodinger's cat.
cat.
Yun, na parang the cat is both alive and dead at the same time, except for when you look at it, and when you look at it, that the reality of the deadness and the liveness is based on your perception. And sa science na yun na. So imagine mo pag we go pa to art and culture and things that are more what's the word for it, na parang constructed. Parang even the idea of science is parang it's amorphous, and it's unfixed, it's not fixed, diba? Parang so that becomes an area of special interest with also with academics similar to me. That's why we had a long discussion with Sir Jeryc about this, about indexicality. Pero to frame this, sige, since we're now delving into the idea of things outside art and into the domain of reality itself. And I guess when you think about reality, siguro some of the sites of conversation would be similar to what Jake mentioned a while ago, na in a way, parang this AI imaging becomes a tool for us to access things that were absent in history. And specifically, images of Magellan, yung Battle of Mactan, na we can only conceive through our imagination and through siguro even the text that is written, the one that Pigafetta wrote. In a way, parang di nga natin alam yung veracity of that, na how much of that Pigafetta account is true, and ano, diba? Pero I guess meron naman siyang ethical idea na as a historian, regardless if I'm Spanish, I had to write this way, diba? Pero nevertheless, the idea of that period, it is unique and it will never happen and no one can recreate it. However, through images with AI imaging, you're able to parang have a visual conception of that time aside from the text that we have. And that plays around in the idea of history, na parang finally, suddenly parang, how does Virgin Mary look like? How does Jesus looked like. And these personalities in history and parang sources of beliefs are now being explored in AI imaging. And therefore, let's say na the computer decides to make Jesus a female. Pero syempre kasi wala pa, hindi medyo malabo pa mangyari yan given that the current status of AI imaging is based on what is existing, and there is very little female Jesus in terms of
The database.
diba? So given that, sige, siguro ewan ko, it's going to be broad. So how does this change Philippine reality? Pero masyadong broad yun. Sige, I mean, siguro there baka
Can
yung
I, kasi interesting yan eh. Kasi ngayon, if we now look at work again, ito, di ba? We are now turning to AI to basically generate images that do not exist, right? Pero if you think about it, the idea of the unphotographable has already been explored by other photographers. Jeff Wall does that, di ba? Di ba? I mean, yun eh. And so it's already there. And I would actually argue that you don't need AI to do this, because my work is, di ba? And Angela's familiar with the work. I create hand-drawn negatives, basically. And I create indexical images. Okay? Yung tipong, what if, for example, a person from the 18th century, well, not the 18th, the early 19th century, kumbaga, is alive now. Ano magiging itsura niya? Diba? As long as there are photographs for that, then ako, using my process, I can actually create that kind of image. So again, it's not, again, going back to the whole point of it's a tool, right? So it's really just limited by your imagination. You find somebody will do this with AI, and me, I would do this, basically by hand, by in a more, again, using more traditional means of art making.
Siguro,
so yun yung
sige, sorry nakat kita, sir. And then after mo, I'll go to Jake.
So ayun na, parang I think just to wrap this all up, I guess, and that's where it becomes important. The idea of indexicality is important, and that's, I think, a rally. I would think of it as a rallying point for people to who are a little iffy about AI, because right now I see I would like to parang probe deep siguro kung bakit natatakot Jilson's AI, because I imagine this phenomenon of AI right now is no different from when photography first came, di ba? When photography was invented, all the painters biglang nataranta na para bang, di ba? And somebody, again, people were saying painting is dead, di ba? But painting is not dead. It's 2023. We still have paintings, right? So it's that para bang, I think that we must look at this as, I think this is a call for actually the emergence of AI is actually a call for people, for artists now to create more physical work. And again, physical work as in material work, as in the prints, because we have moved away from that all this time. We have turned to digital. And now digital is actually coming back to haunt us, diba? Think about again. Yung sabi nga ni Joseph kanina, diba? Everything that is in the database is digital. As an exercise, one of my friends actually asked ChatGPT, which is a text AI program, who is Jeryc Garcia. And ang sagot ng ChatGPT is, I don't know Jeryc Garcia. Maybe he's a private person, and he likes to keep his activities private. See, so if it's, di ba? Yun lang eh. So with that, we actually know how we can beat, quote unquote, AI. If we want to beat AI, by the way, because maybe that's, di ba? I'm not saying that we should beat AI. I'm saying that, if you want to, then there is always a way. Yun.
So yung magandang hina-highlight ni Sir Jeryc na siguro yun yung next phase ng discussion natin, and then we do a parang summary, and then we conclude, and we open siguro the floor to questions from everyone siguro, and also the other people who are here. Before we go there, siguro I'll ask siguro Jake siguro. So si Jake, may na-mention kanina na na parang you are using AI aside from so parang filling in some gaps na not necessarily historical fiction but in a way parang reimagining of that period. So kasi parang in a way parang historical fiction parang accepts or at least recognizes itself as fiction. Pero in what you mentioned a while ago, parang there are cases na parang when we create an image through AI is that it's actually supporting the existing truth, I mean, quote unquote truth, which is, for example, there are texts saying that Magellan went to the Philippines and then, diba, yan, historical information na yan. So parang in a way, parang you're saying that it's possible that it's not fiction, but it's not also photography. So it's something in between that this images parang fills in it becomes a supportive image of what really happened. Pero nevertheless, you mentioned a while ago something to do with scientific study na naalala ko lang kanina na parang you were saying that AI imaging being used for scientific study because parang curious ako on how we reconcile the idea of something that is associated with hard facts. I mean, syempre sinabi nga ni Sir Jeryc kanina na even the scientific field is now super relative because of quantum theory. Pero nevertheless, let's say na lang na in terms of what you were saying a while ago, that AI imaging being used in scientific imaging. Can I ask more about that?
Yeah, we're not necessarily talking about yung present na work na ginawa ko about yung sa orchids. Pero it's an idea of parang siguro incorporate or processing large data sets for scientific research. Like siguro paano ba natin, parang example na lang, paano ba natin ma-crack yung code ng nature? Or paano nagiging nag-regenerate or dumadami yung paano nagiging yung variation nung, for example, yung flora and fauna natin dito sa Pilipinas, ganyan. Parang may underlying code yan eh. So siguro speculative pa rin siya, but I guess with AI, parang you get to process these large data sets na parang you can explore new possibilities through the data sets. Like parang siguro yung Go, yung game na Go, 'di ba? Parang before para sabi nila hindi daw siya hindi daw matatalo yung best Go player. I mean, this is after the chess AI. So parang I guess with the exponential parang power nung natin pwedeng gawin ng AI. Yun nga parang we could also predict or I guess parang foresee yung mga fields sa science and tech na parang pwede nating gamitin yung AI.
So I mean loaded yung term mo na cracking the code of nature, parang ang bigat aside from
medyo mabigat 'yon pero
yeah,
I guess parang dun papunta eh, di ba? Parang
correct.
what if so.
At saka mayroong parang I think meron nga parang naman sa art field din pero hindi siya photorealism. So AI art pa rin siya pero not photorealism. Parang they had an experience about there was an artwork experimenting on the conception of time using AI. I nakalimutan ko na yung parang at saka medyo malalim yung discussion. We don't have time for it. Pero I guess at least to siguro to support that idea of cracking the code. One of the unsettling ideas of AI art and AI imaging in relation to photography is that parang it challenges the conception of what is real, which is it's not something that is new. It has been happening since siguro I mean at least the conscious challenging of truth, parang it started around 1920s, diba? So with yung phenomenology and existentialism. But nevertheless, given there's a lot of things to say about it, and in a way the categories that we're trying to figure it out with are as of now very fluid. Diba? Even the categories that we're using, even in our language, when we talk about this thing of AI imaging, it's a bit fluid. And I mean, in one of the interviews with one of the chief information officers of Microsoft, he was saying, I think in one of the videos that we watched in Shinare natin sa group, was that he was saying that even the language would adapt. Na before, when you say lens, it was the physical it was the physical glass wherein light passes through to capture light, 'di ba? Yun yung original niya. Pero in the contemporary world, starting siguro year 2000, the word lens itself carried this idea of it being a data, parang a data filter. Parang the word lens in general culture, lens became a term associated with digital. So when you go to the younger generation, when they talk about the lens, they're not actually they're referring to some form of digital filter, diba? So that's also changing. Pero nevertheless, since it's a bit broad, pero at least so siguro to summarize a little bit of what we've discussed so far. Parang teacher, no, sorry. May evaluation daw kasi, student and evaluation. So number one is we started with number one question was, is AI text AI imaging a real issue, or is just a trendy topic? And in a way, parang we've explored both sides. So we are saying that it is a trendy topic, especially for some fields, but in some fields, it's actually something really substantial na we have to adapt to this. I mean, it's not going away, diba? I mean, we have to accept that it's not going away. And siguro in a more broader sense, it's going to change our idea of truth, diba? Even up to that level. So our professions will be affected for better or worse. So kaya siguro I'll not summarize kasi baka masyado mahaba. Pero siguro at least to that point na parang, because our main question was that, is AI imaging a real substantial issue, or is it a trendy topic? And in a way, parang we've explored that it is, at least for our fields, diba? In our fields, meron talaga siyang substantial effect. So given that, siguro parang siguro last set of questions is that, so how do we respond now? So to make it more productive and practical. So I think for some of us who are working in broadcast media and technology research, you would have a response, and then in the art gallery system, there's going to be a different response. In the academia, there's going to be a response, and in the field of photojournalism and photo documentary, there's also going to be, and historical and history making, there's also going to be a response. Siguro in a way, parang this is malapit na to sa closing lines din natin. So how do we respond? So we start with Sir Joseph.
Okay, I'll do my best. It's a very complex topic. Let's say from the field where I'm at, I think AI imaging is very, very young. I think I relate it more to like, us talking about when electricity was first invented. Parang it's a new technology. I mean, I'm sure when people started looking at electricity, nobody thought na, we'd have computers 100 years later, we'd all be working 24/7, and it's very early. And syempre, like electricity, ang una nag-react were the people whose jobs were going to be affected. And they started questioning what this technology will do. Back in those days, ang mga naapektuhan were, the people who lit the lamps on the streets, kasi they became obsolete kagad. They had electric lamps already. So I think the way I see us looking at AI is, one, of course, there's transparency. If you're using it, like the musician nga kanina, if you're being judged for that, you have to say na AI is going to be part of this. And I think I foresee lang na this technology will make specialists of all of us. The mundane stuff. Uh, Once the data model, the AI learns better, all the mundane stuff will be automated, and us would have to specialize. If we're interested in reality, we would have to specialize in reality. Dito yung sinasabing heart and head and the hand kasi AI is it's a machine. It's statistics. It's learning by math. It doesn't necessarily differentiate whether this is more beautiful or this is more ugly. Math says the more people like this, so this is probably more beautiful. That's it. So I think as humans we would move more towards the heart and the head, and less of the hands. Siguro, maybe. It's faster on certain fields, like let's say on digital imaging. Like I said, yeah, kanina, AI is being used to clean up stuff, which is tedious and mundane, di ba? Maybe I equate it to parking lot attendance, where you just swipe a RFID card and your parking toll gets paid. But we had people doing that before, di ba? So I think reality and I think we're all going to specialize. And as artists, as content producers, if you look at AI, I swimming in the technology, I can't say whether a job will be safe or not. I don't know. Maybe I don't see something is going to be available in a few months. Because I didn't see this 5 years ago. I didn't think that somebody we actually talk about photorealistic images generated by a computer done in a few minutes. It took us weeks before to do that, doing computer graphics. So personally for me, that's how I see AI imaging and how it will affect our professions. Photographers, content creators, we move towards more specialization and leave the mundane stuff to something AI related. Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Tony, you're in mute.
Anthony, nakamute ka ulit, Anthony.
Ayun, thank you Joseph, no. So just to give you an idea guys, actually itong episode na to, talagang this got triggered when I saw Joseph's work parang in September 2022 when he did that. Kasi among my network, siya yung medyo nauna na nakita ko, wait, AI image to? I mean, and he was dabbling AI imaging about a bit earlier than the rest of the field. Parang kaya nagulat niya ako na kaya rin anyway in-expect ko talaga na the more accommodative people would be people that's outside the field of photography, because the field of photography in a way parang we have an affinity to the analog not in the sense that we're using analog cameras. The idea of the analog, which is the photographic process as mentioned by Sir Jeryc. In the process of creating images, there is an analog physicality. I'm not saying that regardless if you're using a cyanotype or using a digital camera, there is a process that is an analog of our humanity. Na parang there's an experience or there is a materiality that happens when we enact something in the world. Para ako philosopher. Pero in a way, si Sir Jeryc, naintindihan niya to kasi ito rin yung mga concepts ng indexicality. Pero nevertheless yun. So just to let everyone know, so I give credit to Sir Joseph in starting this question in my head. And then now we're doing a podcast about it. So, and I'm also using a non-photographer. Okay lang ba if I call you non-photographer?
Yeah.
Yung work niya, I'm also using it in one of my classes. Talking about the concept of photography trends, which is, if in a way parang a huge part of the discussion of photography is in the mimesis, how it represents the reality the closest. as compared to all the other visual media. Pero syempre, Sir Jeryc would also, again, and Angela would also go back to, but wait, when you say reality, reality is not just the two-dimension, it's something physical. It has volume. It exists as an index of something. There's a causality that happens before reality happens. Parang there is a cause that is in the heart of reality. So given that, so now I go to siguro Angela. So siguro bago ka mag-respond on how, I mean, bago mo sabihin on how you would respond siguro as an individual, and how you see the field of art making would respond. So siguro I'll introduce you nga yung work ni Corinne, no? So si Corinne, parang one of the responses to this AI imaging is that she made AI images of the archetype of the dalagang bukid and made cyanotypes out of it. So parang trinay niyang i-match yung modern communicative image making tools with something that is in a way parang labeled as alternative and archaic. I mean, in some, depende kung sinong teacher yung kausap mo, pag yung ibang practitioner sabihin nila archaic na yan. Pero some of the artists, we want the analog, we want the physical. We do cyanotypes regardless if it's an AI generated image. We want to do an analog, something that's physical and indexical. So I think Sir Jeryc and Angela will talk further about it in relation to the response of the field. So Angela?
I think, are we trying to wrap it up in
Sort
a
of.
personal basis?
Parang
Okay.
kasi to parang in a way parang we're in the idea in the discussion of a response of our professions and our specific fields.
Got it. Okay. In a nutshell, for my personal art making, it's just a tool. I can generate ideas and I can develop them. We spoke, you used it from the very beginning of this panel, my head, hand, heart concept. I want to also add that there's a fourth element, and it's called the spiritual. And it's not something like, who religious or anything like that. I equate it more with the humanity and with the soul. What's our responsibilities to each other? When Jeryc talks about, oh, you could generate, you cannot make up a person. Well, Google has all our personal information, and it could generate all the data from our data info and replace each one of us as an AI generated figure and go out there into the world, and it's a deep fake. Now there is an AI generated, Jeryc. That's a possibility. That means then that there's a responsibility, social responsibility, which is equated with spirituality and humanity, issues about privacy and the existence and respect for the individual and the trust. As a society, how are we going to treat each other with that kind of kindness, respect, and trust when prompts to generate artificial AI images are generated by human input biases, by the majority of input generated by Western, captions on images, by culture of the West. That's why I treasure and value, the images that show brown skins or generated by, Filipino history, or what Corinne's works on an old, missing movie made into a cyanotype. All those things is something that I personally would want to consider more of from head, hand, heart, the spirituality and the humanity of what will happen when, who's going to make money out of AI? Who's going to pay less creatives because it can be generated by something faster, cheaper, quicker for somebody else to make money off of your work? So many questions. So it goes back for me as I go forward in this, personal life and professional life. So the social responsibilities to each other. So I think that's about it for me.
Yeah. Angela, see, I have a question lang. So you're one of the first ones. I mean, the reason also I was interested in having you here because you you reacted yung dun sa ano, yung dun sa the ceramic cameras. I
Mm.
think I remember you are one of the ano, I mean in my network. Ikaw yung parang you were, you know, parang you were mad. I'm not sure if it's mad. Mad in the sense that angry, not mad. As in, parang and also in a way parang annoyed that this was not presented right at the start as fictional imaging. I mean, I don't know yung specific term na ginamit mo. You use a term yung nakalimutan ko yung term na ginamit mo sa post mo Parang
I forget na rin.
oh yeah, yung
But-
parang anong nangyari parang
But it was beautifully generated AI images of cameras made from ceramics of certain types, like, you know, porcelain, black, blue and white porcelain was a camera. This artist, AI artist, was like fantastic. What it did was I got so angry and upset because it caused me to get lustful. I wanted it. Where can I order the camera? I want that camera. I want to have it in my collection. I have a camera. I have a collection of old Polaroids. That became like, what am I feeling? Why do I want this fake? Nobody, you can't buy it. I got pissed. I can't get this.
Ayan, I'm nag-screen share ako. So yeah, para makita nyo lang na parang yan. So it was posted. I mean, we also used an image from the same set of the AI artist. Siguro let's do some let's be fair with him. So let's give his name. parang binanggit ko na rin.
No, it's good. I mean, he's good. Whatever it is, he did is good. But it was fake. And I got upset that it was fake because I wanted it to be real. That was the deception. And that was the lie, or the, you know, lack of truth and transparency. So, you know, he did it, he does it well, and I responded to it. That's my problem.
And that's actually interesting. I mean, I mean to let you know na you were asking if this is the closing. In a way, parang we're nearing it, pero open pa rin tayo for other additional ideas. So siguro ang i-highlight ko dito sa in you trying to explain what happened. Parang something that was made up had real experiential effects on us. Na parang I mean siguro bracketing history and philosophy, that feeling, that state of longing or desiring for something that does not exist, I guess siguro in a way that becomes parang parang that's one of the areas of I mean, hindi nga siya conversation about art. It's conversation about our internal structure as a human being, in the sense that why am I responding this way to something that does not exist, and I'm annoyed that I responded that way to something that does not exist. Parang doon ako naging interested din doon sa comment mo na parang, especially that you are an artist and you're a printmaker. Part of the work that you do is making things physical. And
Yeah.
in a way, parang that hit hard on you na parang, what did this does not exist? Parang
Now I kind of recall what I was saying, which is this is fiction, and I hate that it's fiction.
yeah,
You know.
yung line mo. So
That's
so
all.
parang
So transparency.
siguro may part din dito na, I mean since you mentioned it, since we're using the term fiction, siguro that's interesting din. Siguro one way to frame this conversation of AI art is using literary criticism, in the sense that when we do literary criticism, we have that biographical criticism of the background of the writer, background of the author, background of the AI as artist. And there's also part of literary criticism, which is the affective part of criticism, wherein what states of being or what states of emotions or what states of thinking or what states of thoughts such a fictional work would bring us to, diba? So unlike nonfiction, which is some usually historical, fiction has a way of affecting us. Siguro that's also a way of framing it, no? Probably in a way, parang when we talk about AI art or AI imaging, we can find some siguro parang resonance, siguro yun yung siguro that's a word it's better to be used now. There's a resonance of this work with literary fiction that in a way parang characters, objects, events that happen in a book are not real, but they are effective. And siguro that also brings us to the question of art making and reality na one school of thought of imaging and also art creation is the fact that it's ideal, that in the sense that it's in the realm of the metaphysical, siguro in the realm of the metaphysical, and the physical object is just an entryway for us to experience that metaphysical truths, diba? So I mean, that's also distinguishing physical truth versus metaphysical truths, which now brings me to Sir Jeryc. So in terms of going to that idea of the response as an artist, response as a professional, response as a human being. So how do we respond to AI art?
I think, I think ito, I was thinking about that, and talaga, when you were describing, before you actually said, you were annoyed at it, I figured that was it. I would really be annoyed at this. I'm not annoyed that this does not exist. I'm annoyed that I'm reacting as if this was real. I'm annoyed that, some part of me has been duped into thinking that this exists. Okay. And so that sort of leads me to, when you think about it, when you look at, the comments, because I like looking at the comments about, when people make comments about AI art and they reject it as art. One of the comments that the theme of the comments nila minsan is that they don't believe that AI art AI art is art because it's not real. Okay, that is they are very convinced that AI art is not art because it's not real. And I go, what are you talking about? Right? For example, it's not real, right? And so it's not art. Movies are not real; they're fictional. And why do we think of them as art, right? So it cannot be, it cannot be just this. We cannot just dismiss AI art as not art because it's not real. And I think that's what, and for me, I think that's that this is for everybody. I think we need to be more discerning about what we, again, moving forward from this. I think we need to be more discerning about why we don't like this. I know I don't like this because I should not be reacting this way. But yeah, because I know, I make things, I'm a creator myself, and I know fiction and non-fiction. And Angela and I worked in advertising, so we know about truth, right? And so we know
construction of truth.
Exactly. But I react to this. And I guess I think that's what needs to be. I think we need to be more level-headed about this when we look at an AI and make judgments about AI. Di ba? Yun talaga eh. And let me just share a site. It's thispersondoesnotexist.com.
Yes.
It's a collection of
Yes.
pictures of people who do not exist because they're all AI generated. I was naisip ko yun when Angela was talking about Google can actually take all of our data and then basically come up with a person. And if you look at the photographs of the people on this website, ganun din ang reaction mo. This could be your father, your mother, whoever. There is this, it's tricked. It's, if anything, these images have tricked the human part of us to respond a certain way. So that's one. I guess that's one. The other part here is that when people really get angry about AI, they get angry about AI. why are you angry at AI? Sabi nga ni Joseph kanina, it's really just, it's a database. It does not know what a dog is, right? If you're going to be angry at somebody, be angry at the people behind AI, because somebody is basically making this work.
Making money.
And exactly, and that's the third point here, because I think that the people who are most angry at this are the people who are losing money because of AI, right? Yun talaga yun. It's a and it's a very human response. But it's taking away my jobs. It's like, again, electricity suddenly taking away the jobs of other people, and so there's now this feeling of loss, or again, because parang stages of stages of grief, and where are you now? Eventually you'll accept this, because really this is not going anywhere.
Mhm.
This is really going to get better. So I guess it's just about us making it work for us rather than the other way around.
Yes, the other way, yeah.
Yeah. And I think ito, just to sneak this in as an educator. So ito siyempre concern namin to, di ba? If somebody submits work, kanina, going back to it, if somebody submits work that is AI generated, would we know? Would we not know? Diba? Again, honesty system and all that stuff. But ako kasi, I'm advocating now a shift toward, instead of focusing on, because we have focused so long on the object, diba? The object of the work, right? But not the idea behind the work. And I think that, that's it. Jake's work, that disco thing, again, annoyance. I'm very much annoyed that, my gosh, that really captures, again, the zeitgeist of that era. And I'm annoyed that, I'm reacting to that. And yet I know that that is all, kumbaga, a construction. Diba? But the idea there is fabulous. Diba? And now, if Jake, if somebody says that is not art, turo mo ako. Because really, question, because
Pero Jerica, so for example, you touch on the idea of being an educator. So yung question kanina before we started, would you as an educator, kasi okay, wait sige. So siguro i-mention ko lang yung idea of that trajectory of reasoning that maybe some artists would have some violent reaction towards AI art because there is a certain physicality that was part of their training. They spent 20 years of honing their craft, the technique. Nakalimutan ko yung Greek term for it, pero in classical ideas of art, part of it is the concept and part of it is the technique. And the technique in traditional terms is something that is physical. And when you have something that doesn't have technique, and in a way parang, although the technique siguro is the choosing of the words, diba? Pero that is
exactly. May technique. There's no way that there's no technique. Because if you type in a jumble of nonsense words, you're going to get garbage. Really, I tried it. Talagang random, it's going to give garbage.
And this points to your and this also points to your one of your parang parang one of your assertions that AI imaging is the domain or the enclave of the writer and not
correct.
the artist. So can you explain that further?
Again, this is now with regard to the creation of AI art, right? A lot of people think that AI art is really the end product, which is the image. And I argue that no, AI art is in the construction of the prompts. AI art is not visual, it's actually poetry. Because it's you again, and now that's why I'm saying that this is the writer has an upper hand here, because the writer would have words in his mind that would not probably be in the visual artist's mind, right? Because the visual artist thinks in visuals, not in words. And so so if you have really ako, di ba, sayang nga wala. We were supposed to do a challenge like create like AI art, like somebody who was completely image based and somebody who was, copy based. Really do it, and then let's see what comes up. But that's it, and it's valid. I would argue that it is valid. A lot of problems again. This whole art issue, I think comes from the fact that when we look at art, when we think about art, we are still thinking in terms of, is it a painting? Is it a sculpture? Very classical conceptions of what art is, right? But we're now it's 2023, right? My professor, when you ask him what is art, that's not the right question. You should not ask what is art, diba? You should actually ask, when is it art, or how is it art? Those are now the questions of art, no longer what. No longer, diba? I mean, because again, what is a photograph? It's this, it's this. But how is it a photograph? When is it a photograph? Right? So that's more. I think that represents the thinking now of people in art. Also, I guess before I go to Angela, also just to clarify, when we talk about art, the term art, we are talking about really the creation of something, right? Because again, there's another conception of art as art being sold as art as commerce. So there's a different dynamic for that. For example, I can make art that will not be sold, or I will have no intention of selling. So if that's the case, then it's not art. Then I would have to argue, no. It's still art. I'm just choosing not to sell it. I'm just because that's a totally different conversation when you have to sell it, when you have to make money out of art. Angela, you were raising your hand.
Mike. Yeah.
Okay. I have to pass. I forgot my question. I think I'm still got my COVID fog. So sorry, it might come back. Let's go on.
Okay.
Si Joseph yata
Pwede ba?
gusto mong share kanina. Were you going
No.
to...
Wala naman.
Sige.
Joseph.
So I mean, parang nga nangyari, maganda rin yung elucidation natin of yung for each part of for each discussion, you have a certain medyo nakakatuwa nga na parang instead of answering the question, parang nangyayari, parang what we're doing, parang it's becoming revelatory of us and less of AI art eh. Parang nangyayari, parang AI art is outside of us, and then in this process of what we're doing, it reveals more about us and not the AI art itself, diba? So
that is correct.
So next natin si Jake. So regarding responses of siguro as an individual, as a professional, and siguro as a human being. So kasi yun nga itouch the idea of history and identity and siguro parang history, diba? So
yeah, for me kasi parang personal lang. I see AI as a tool for me, just like when digital photography came out, parang mas marami na shots na pwedeng makunan, parang ganun. Dito mas marami na akong ideas na pwedeng explore outside reality. So for me, it makes my practice more like mas mabilis yung processing ng ideas ko. And yeah, so naman, and I also agree with Jeryc sa sinabi niya na it's about the idea, how you pursue the idea. And I have questions for Jeryc din about yung students using AI and stuff, pero na lang siguro at a later time na lang. Yeah. For me, you have to be truthful in what siguro your process dun sa ginagawa mo, and mention yun nga, parang I don't want people then to think na yun nga, I don't want people to be duped or sa mga works ng mga artists. So for me yun, you have to be truthful in your process. And yeah, that's it.
So Jake, siguro to a follow-up question
Mhm.
or at least an observation on what you said. So in a way, parang I saw parang two major threads in that
Mhm.
explanation. So one would be the idea of uh possibilities. So I think one of the things that is recurring in what you're saying and on how you have responded to it in our conversation
Mhm.
and also in your work
Yeah.
is the idea of possibilities, and
Mhm.
that part is also something that is very critical as professionals. So hindi, so I'm not referring to possibilities as just something that's philosophical. Possibilities in the sense
Mhm.
of us as creative agents and professionals.
Mhm.
So malaki yung parang ino-offer ng AI art, and I think one of the what I mentioned a while ago na ironic na that you have been able to navigate around that, parang na even as a photographer you are open to it, and during and in the process of being open to it you are able to create something na other people can have not and cannot. I mean, probably they can, pero have not. So it's a matter of when. I guess
Mhm.
it's a matter of when. And another thread of your explanation also is in terms of transparency. So
Mhm.
of being open to saying that this is art and labeling it as transparency that this was made using AI imaging. Siguro from that thread siguro I can probably parang extrapolate an additional idea when it comes to as a teacher, for some of us we're teachers, is the training of the ethical artist, the idea of 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 us also putting a space in our training programs and in our methods of of highlighting the ethics on what we do, that it's not just in the we're not artists and professionals, and in our practice of the profession and also being artists, we are not just engaged in making beautiful things or siguro art making na lang, sige. We are also engaged or part of the process is being ethical. So there is a parang a certain area of training that should also focus on transparency, also
Mhm.
framing things that if you do art, there is there is that it's effective. Basically, it connects your work to an idea and to other people, and therefore it will affect other people. And in the process of sabihin natin na parang lying, then probably you
Mhm.
have to be ethical and saying na okay, this is a personal work and I used AI in doing it. So yung idea of transparency, and siguro in terms of portfolio developments also, since to be more practical and more productive, that in the
Mhm.
future siguro let's say in 5 years, siguro kung ikaw kung graphic designer ka and photographer ka, siguro magkakaroon ng 'di ba ng parang yung paglabas, yung emergence of the generalist in a way, na parang I can write, I can shoot, I
Mhm.
can do illustration, I can do Photoshop, I can. So parang siguro parang nakikita ko din dun sa sinasabi mo, and you as an example, nagkakaroon
Mhm.
ng space for the acceptance of a generalist instead of a specialist. Although sabi nga ni Joseph kanina, baka in the future baka mas maging specialist tayo. So again, everything
Mhm.
is fluid, no? So tama naman yung pagkaintindi ko dun sa sinabi mo nun, Jake.
Yes, correct. And siguro yung one additional thing pa na hindi siguro na-tackle at this time is siguro yung joy of making art. Kasi ako I enjoy doing it. I enjoy playing with ideas and sa AI and So yung sort of the play and the joy of making it, parang I think malaking part yun eh. Malaking part yung of the creative endeavor is yung play. So
Galing na.
ayun, yeah.
Mhm.
So
Very
parang in a
human.
way, parang the way I understood that, parang AI is a sandbox. Parang
Yes.
do things to it and on it, within it. Parang, I mean, syempre, the preposition, sorry, halo-halo yung prepositions. Pero the idea of it as a sandbox, diba? Parang a site of creation. Then, and also a site of joy, diba? I mean, creation as an exhibition or as a manifestation of joy, diba? So, or a source of joy,
Yeah.
like source of joy. Maganda rin siya kasi when you frame it that way, parang the idea of gatekeeping na parang oh, you should not or you should, 'di ba? Yung mga ganun, yung mga questions of should and should not. Mas magiging mas magiging blurred, I guess, 'di ba? So mas magiging when you frame it in terms of the joy of creation. So the boundaries of should and should not becomes parang immaterial or more fluid, diba? So good,
Yeah.
great input yun, great input. So now we go to Jilson. So bro, yung when it comes to how do we respond to AI imaging?
I guess I really see AI right now as an aid din talaga to more of an aid really rather than a threat. Kasi at the end of the day, it can help you generate ideas. It can help other people appreciate photography more. It can happen. And sooner or later in the future, craftsman will not matter. Like photo retouching, mga basic stuff. Hindi na siya hindi na siya problem. Kaya na natin gawin lahat 'yun through the power of AI. And what will matter is what's your perspective? What art do you want to create? Because you can create it right now. So that thins down the kung sino talaga yung creative and sino talaga yung may unique outlook sa paggawa ng art. And what was I gonna say? Parang yun yung tingin ko na mangyayari na matin down yung industry and lahat tayo magiging thinkers rather than doers. It all it all applies to all fields because AI is in ChatGPT. ChatGPT, honestly, I use it to correct my grammar. And it all boils down to that. So I think it's more of really an aid right now. That's it.
So parang so in a way yung accommodative din yung tone that I can get from your response, no. So I mean also I think meron ka rin nabanggit when it comes to democratization of the sige, I'm not going to talk about the profession kasi that's a different side of conversation. Pero yung the democratization of image making, which has been parang in a way parang has been touched several times din in the discussion, that in the future people I mean currently photography, at least photorealism or okay, ang hirap din pala even the language, no. I have to edit. Siguro yung that category of photo based and photorealistic. Before that area of creation was the space or the sphere or the enclave of us, the photographers. Pero ngayon, that area of that field becomes accessible to almost everyone, and regardless, for better or worse, it becomes democratized. Siguro, so in a way, parang the legal side of IP kasi 'di ba, I think meron din nabanggit kanina sila Angela and sila Joseph when it comes to the data set or the data farm from which the images are inspired from. Yun na, parang I'm referring, in a way, parang I'm starting to refer to AI as a person eh. Kasi parang, parang medyo nagbabago yung term eh. Kaya sabi ko, ito, in
Yeah,
about,
you're down in the rabbit hole. So
sabi
Yeah.
ko, in 20 years, the super brain. Nako. Actually, doon ako, kung meron akong area of fear, it's not really in the creation of image. The moment that this thing, siguro wag mo na yung sentience, yung the idea of it being able to integrate with the physical. So like 3D modeling or 3D imaging. Kasi I think yun yung
It's happening.
it's
diba?
happening. In fact, in fact, to chime in lang, Tony, no, we're looking at this from that data set pa lang. What if, let's say, we like I would just say, what if we take healthcare data model, or we take here yung computer vision of, let's say, self-driving cars,
Mm.
and then you can have drones who are aware of the environment, and then I don't know, maybe they can be, you know, where there's a war, maybe they can take photos for us, di ba? At the eye.
Skynet, pare. Skynet.
Skynet, diba? We don't know. Kaya nga, it's electricity. It's very early. We don't know where it will take us, what new professions will come, what professions will go away. And pero yeah, it is a tool. It is a tool for us right now. Yes, Angela.
I think all of us have been talking about how we have access to AI, how it's democratizing, making things accessible, idea making, art making, and then we moved away from, we're not going to be making it with our hands anymore. And I still have a problem that there's a huge population that does not have access to a computer, to everything that we talk about in high tech. And again, I go back to the social responsibilities. So if I personally were to encourage, as I am doing with printmaking, is to make things with your hand, even if it's just handprint or a footprint or something. You know, how can we, otherwise we'll all be making the same generative art that's gonna look the same, look alike. And I go back to what, Jeryc was saying, how can we come up with something original? Something that's not been done before. And Jeryc even said it. What about the prompts? How can you put in prompts that no one's ever thought about or come up with combinations? So yeah, it's still a rabbit hole, but it's also only a population that has access to technology. So where's our social responsibility for that?
So
I'm
i-highlight
just throwing it out there.
Yung siguro parang nangyari doon sa isa sa mga highlight ni Angela is the idea of AI imaging as a site of privilege, I guess. So
Yeah.
it's a site of privilege that
Might be a new elite, parang ganun, no?
Yeah.
So may aspects of the rin the social structure. I mean, if you go Marxist, I think meron din kaming conversation ni Jeryc when it comes to Walter Benjamin pagdating doon sa what is art in terms of parang Marxist perspective, Marxist theory versus something classical na diba yung expression, diba? And then Marxist parang no, dapat art should be democratized. If you can do something that other people cannot, then you're putting art as a privileged experience, di ba? Ay din yung heart ng Walter Benjamin na yung essay niya na parang art shouldn't be a privileged experience. But however, siguro it doesn't contradict naman yung sinasabi ni Angela na having that imprint. Siguro linguistically kukunin ko yung term of the handprint and AI art na parang the idea of the print. So regardless if you're using a physical analog material, physical art form, or something that is something more amorphous, formal, siguro yung term ko, formal in the sense that it's mathematical. I'm not saying formal as in aesthetic formal. I'm saying AI art as something that is formal in the sense that math is formal. So that's what I mean. I'm not saying the aesthetic formal na aesthetics. So whether you're doing something that's analog or something more formal, which is similar to mathematics, what's important, at least in the art making. So if we put a specific area of conversation, if we put it in art, the imprint of that person, of the human person, I guess, is still one of the more important or significant ways of assessing it. Kasi nga yung the idea of the imprint. And I think in one of our conversations kami ni Jeryc, we also said that indexicality, if you try to be more sabihin natin medyo mas parang mas simpleng word, it's the matter of factness. Although that seems in a way parang siyang German, kasi sa German language ang daming nouns lahat capital letter, yung matter of factness sa philosophy ganun, di ba? So siguro yon yung the idea of the matter of factness, but in the matter of factness of art creation, of it being indexical, the matter of factness of the art object, or sige, regardless if it's an art object or if it's generative art na it is in a two-dimensional, as a two-dimensional image, where is the imprint, diba? Whether diba, where is the imprint of that human agent siguro. So pero yun nga, I think yun nga yun din, I think yung mga rin controversial kasi in the future, how much of it is ours and how much of it is the tool. Parang in a way, parang for now we're saying it's a tool. Pero the way it's developing, the tool in a way becomes the agent, because there's an idea of that the consciousness. Well, as of now, medyo yung idea of consciousness medyo pa siya, question mark pa siya. Pero I'm just thinking of 10 years, or sabihin natin ito, 4 years down the line. O sige, yung perspective ko naman on how I'm responding. Sige, since nag-answer na kaya ako naman. So yung response ko as a teacher naman din, well, I have this. One of the ways that I'm teaching my students and also the community, not teaching, para siguro informing the community, is having this discourse, this conversation. Kasi people would say na parang, what's the point of you having a podcast about it? I mean, you're not going to resolve anything. But then for me naman, I believe that discourse, information about it, would allow better participation, in the sense that whether you're for or against, the fact that you have more information about it, you become more productive. It's either you participate, you produce something through participation, or you're also more possible din na maging productive ka by dissociating yourself from it. Na parang, no, I want to do something physical. So it's still your response about it through the information that you got from a strange podcast that we did is productive, in the sense that parang, oh, sige, I'll dissociate myself from it. I want to do something that's physical, something more performative. Diba? I mean, ito yung mga terminology sa art criticism, yung the performativity, the physicality, materiality. These are parang terms that we use in art criticism, and siguro creation in general. So my response to being a teacher, for as being a teacher, is just to let the community and also my students to hear about it. And then given the scope of our experience as professionals, parang now, as a student, if you see this, parang okay, they can also create their own opinions, diba? So they can respond to it by matter of responding to a podcast, diba? I mean, that's my response, that making people aware. So putting it in their consciousness that this thing is there. There are several ways of framing it, of understanding it, assessing it, analyzing it, appreciating it. But then again, as a person, as a student, you have to make your own value judgment, or at least your personal response. Na as a future professional, when you graduate from MINILD, so how do you respond? Yun yung siguro, yun din yung way of me na my response becomes, I pass that idea of you have to respond. That parang trigger or call to action, yung term ni Jeryc, na call to action to the community and also to my students, na parang you, especially you, kasi for us, we're established in a way, parang we're established, we're nasa na tayo, diba? Pero for people who are just going to start, you have to be aware of this and you have to create your own opinions. And yeah, I think for now, yun nga, we've given naman diba, the spectrum of opinions from the affirmative up to the yung parang negative, diba? Pero in a way, parang tayo medyo nasa in the middle tayo, so we're still accommodative. So with that, I guess we'll open the floor to questions. So although si Sir Jeryc and Sir Jeryc na lang naiwan. Yung naiwan. Sir Jeryc, do you have a question that you want to throw to the group? Si Sir Jeryc, nag-join siya din last week. So maganda rin yung last week kasi ano naman national artist. So wala. Ay, may sir, kung ano, pwede, you can also type in your question if you have. Yun, haba. Yan, tanong po para kay Sir Jake. Ayan. Si Jake, may tanong sa'yo. Paano po binuo ang images sa inyong proyekto? Ano ang mga historical images ang ginamit nyo bilang basihan ng inyong proyekto? Tingin ko po nanggagaling ang tanong ko sa nabanggit ni Anthony na ethics sa practice ng image making. Curious po ako sa lapit ng inyong historical reimagining sa existing, accepted na historical narrative. Paano po ang naging proseso ng inyong research? Paano po ang inyong naging proseso sa pagpusisi sa mga maaaring butas at bias ng historical data? So I had to read that out loudly kasi nga for the viewers of this video, wala silang way para to read it kasi nasa chat box siya. So that's the reason I had to read it aloud. So Jake, do you want to respond? I think you were also able to read, no?
Yes, nakakabasa ko lang din. Yeah, so yung process ko on making yung series na yun, ano lang talaga, for me it's really a play on my imagination. Parang hindi ako, I don't claim to have like, siguro yung pinaka-accurate lang doon is yung captions ko na o siguro yung pangalan ng disc. For example, yung mga disco na nag-exist nung time na yon, yun lang yung mga accurate na research ko, yung kung kailan sila nagbukas, nagsarado, or yung mga nangyari ba nung time na yun dito sa lugar na yun, ganyan. Pero yung visual output nung mga prompts ko, it's really parang loosely based lang siya. Siguro parang may imagine mo na parang siyang pelikula or libro na may konting fiction. Pero yun nga, hindi ko rin naman kina-claim na ganun ka-accurate. Parang it's really a play on my imagination. Then paano binuo yung images? Ginamit ko dito yung Midjourney. Tapos may mga prompts, may mga images doon na ginamit ko, stable diffusion, kasi nagte-train din ako ng sarili kong models, pero yun nga medyo mabagal. Yung ginagawa nun, parang lahat ng photos na existing ka na gusto mong isama dun sa dataset, pwede mo siya ilagay sa isang folder, tapos yung image na ma-generate nung nabago, magagaling doon. Tapos may konting Photoshop din dun sa mga ginawa kong images. Yeah, so did I answer all the questions?
Yeah, Jake, I'm a fan of your work. Ayan.
Thank you, Angela.
So Sir Jeryc, ayun yung response ni Jake. I think siguro kung meron lang ako siguro na panggulo sa usapan, na parang what happens to, so feeling ko may mga academic na gagawa nito in the near future. Sabihin nila na play as historical revisionism. Kung gagamitin ko yung trajectory, I mean not trajectory, sorry. So, I'm not trying to put Sir Jeryc in a parang a compromised position. I'm saying that siguro one of the possible academic studies of this medium or tool in the future would be play as historical revisionism in the sense, or play as unintentional historical revisionism. Siguro kung sa mga academic, parang yan yung mga areas of discussion, that in the sense that the thing with Jake is transparent. He's saying these things, he's open to it. Probably when prompted, when he is asked any work that he does using AI, he would openly discuss it, yung process niya, ganyan. Pero because Jake is a professional and in a way he has he has ano, parang, I mean, he has a training, I mean, may ethical stand siya on these things, di ba? So, pero the question is, since nabanggit din ni Jilson kanina na in the future, like give it a year or 2 years, everyone might be doing it already because now some of the generative power can now be accommodated by a mobile phone. Diba? I mean, syempre may mga tiers of of data computing, diba? So may levels of processing power ng mga CPUs, diba? Pero in the future, let's say that parang sabihin natin yung sa processing power din ng mobile phones, probably in the future, everyone can do it na. So ngayon, yung isa sa mga ethical questions kanina na syempre we cannot answer na given the time, and also it's a separate discussion of the ethics about it, diba? Is if someone unknowingly did something, like for example, creating, sabihin natin, an event na sabihin natin, ano ba yung may mga social implications, like for example, namatay si, kasi madali yan i-verify eh. Yung mga things na historical, yun yung mahirap i-verify eh. So I think yun din yung heart nung tinatanong din ni Sir Jeryc, is the verifiability of something, diba? Yung kung pwede mo ba siyang i-verify. In the case of, sabihin natin, of the general populace, some of them are basically just playing around with the tool, and then they create a space and time that did not exist, diba? So yun yung curious ako na parang well, ngayon wala pang concrete example, kaya hindi pa siya ganoon ka solid yung argument about it. Pero nakikita ko lang na that could be a possible, parang ngayon may mga discussion sa photography, sa photographic practice, the vernacular photography, di ba? So nakikita ko lang na in the future baga magkaroon ng vernacular AI. Yun yung mga areas of study that in the future baka maging areas of interest for academics. And also, aside from the academic field, baka it also would have some implications in society. Yung sinabi nga rin ni Angela kanina na yung society. So how do we approach this? I mean, do we have to put laws in place about it? Or do we put guidelines in the practice? Diba? Do we have to have rules about IP in terms of, for example, if you do AI art, probably, how? Diba? Well, marami nga siyang tangential areas that we can go to. Pero yun lang siguro in the future na a possible point of discussion is how about unintentional historical revisionism or unintentional historical basta yun. Gets nyo? Pero, so yun. So with that, siguro kahit na siguro parang short closing na lang from our panel. Panel, hindi naman kasi to hindi naman to debate, hindi rin naman to hindi naman lecture. Pero yan siguro parang closing words from everyone. So ladies first. So Angela, and then
Okay. In closing, I think I personally will be reading up much more on this because of the implications for gallery work, working rather than on my personal work, looking at entertainment, looking at fiction, looking at new works that's going to be coming out and how it's generated. I may become more skeptical, cynical, and so on. I'd like to invite anybody else or the other people in this panel to maybe, if you want to share some interesting links. I've just posted a couple in the chat, only because, now that we know each other a little bit more about our practices and whether or not, we will be using AI or we think it's a tool or it's okay, then I'd like to think that, we're all like-minded and be willing to share a little bit more about where our development is going to happen and how. So I would like to do that.
okay. Siguro sobrang dagdag lang mabilis. Yung sinabi ni Angela in terms of the gallery system. So last week, Steph was part of the discussions. She mentioned that in the Singapore Biennale, so in the last 2 years, everything has been AI art. Just to give context in the gallery system and outside the Philippines, in the Singapore Biennale, for the last 2 years, parang AI art has been the majority of the work. And the years prior to that is video art. So in a way, parang to give din comparative perspective of how we see this and how other countries are seeing this, is that I mean, again, the assessment I will not assess, but I'm just putting it out there that based on steps sinabi niya last week that in the Singapore Biennale, tama ba? Basta may the Biennale in Southeast Asia, parang 13 works yata are AI art na. So yun. So next siguro si Sir Jeryc.
Okay, so I guess what I want to say here is that, again, whatever we feel about AI, I think do what Angela's doing, diba? You need to find out more about it. Because it's easy. I mean, right, it's so easy to make a comment right now and really feel that you have contributed to the conversation. But when you ask yourself, you really have to parang why do you not like it? Why do you like it? Diba? And why are you afraid of it? Why do you support it? And that has to be clear. I think that's the important thing here. With regard to photography, I think yung ang sore point nito is now everybody's a photographer. Well, that happened when digital came along. Diba? Everybody is a photographer. So yung again related to the democratization of photography, well, to be honest, I was one long time ago, again, because I was shooting film and everybody started shooting digital, parang now everybody's a photographer. So parang, why? So medyo may ano ba? What can you call it? Like a purist approach, purist lens. Really, if you go back to the history of photography has always been democratic. Diba? Kodak came out with the brownie camera so that everybody can take pictures. Diba? And so to suddenly say that photography should be the realm of the few, the realm of the people who can use cameras properly, the realm of people who can buy X camera is not only untrue in general, it's untrue of photography. Yun. And it's an expression. Sabi ko nga in my class, I have photo class this term. And I told them that really, the only thing that photography, the thing that photography really does is, when you share your photographs, you're telling me how you see things. You're telling me how you, basically how your world looks like. Diba? And so if you use AI to create photographs, diba, it's just telling me that this is parang your conception of the world. And that is valid. There's nobody that is not valid. Nobody can tell you that what you're making is not art. Diba? It may not sell in the gallery, but that's not, diba? That's not the the rubric to be used, whether art is art or art is not art. Yun. At this point in time, everything is art. And everything is open, just like our own impressions about AI, about the future with AI. Let's face it, it's here. It's going to stay. You cannot turn back the clock, really, on this. You just have to work with it. And I think again, and this is, I guess, I join Angela in this, that really, if you want to work, you want to create work that is not in the mold of AI, get your hands dirty. That's it. Again, if that's what you want, because everything is possible, diba? And everything, you make it work. If you make it work, if you can argue that it works, it works for you, it's good enough. Pero again, just to hammer this in, if you are a professional, You cannot just, talaga, I love yung kay Joseph kanina. If you are applying to become a violinist, you cannot, suddenly come up with, a computer generated violin something, because that would not be it. Yun. That's it.
Okay. Si Sir Jeryc, marami pa yung gustong sabihin tungkol sa construction of reality. So, yung ano natin, yung sa February 11, naman yan, photography as philosophy. So, yung si Dr. Barbasa from Ateneo, he is going to discuss that. And siguro, part of mahagip doon yung idea of semiology, construction of, siguro, phenomenology of photography, mga ganyan. So, indexicality siguro, di ba? The conception of the verifiable and the unverifiable metaphysics. O I'm sure si Sir Jeryc nandun sa Feb 11. Or at least papanoorin niya, di ba? So, tapos next siguro si Sir Joseph.
Yeah. Well, first, siguro, I'd like to thank everyone. I've learned so much in our brief chit chat and talk. In fact, I've been dealing, mostly about data rates and, how to make things more efficient. I learned so much from our talks kasi, the human side is something talaga na can easily get lost, especially in a new technology like artificial intelligence and text-to-image generation. And I agree here with Angela and Jeryc when they say na I think besides learning the technical of how this works, is also to keep remembering then how to make this human. I mean, always go back to why. It is a tool now, pero it can easily take over. When like what Jeryc was saying, kung maging crutch na natin to, and we're dependent on it, we might lose something. And keep if like what Angela was saying, if we keep reminding ourselves, to work with our hands or and to keep the human side of the technology, and not just simply focus on what model is this, what will make this more, and really look, kumbaga, at the soul ng why we do things. This is what I learned now, the need of this discussion is what awakened sa akin more. I mean, yeah, I have been reading about this, and somebody who's neck deep always on the technical side, and how to make things more efficient, which will be faster, which will be more efficient. Hearing your views of why we have to make this human is something talaga na I think, Tony, if there's one goal of these talks, it's really this the sort of discussion na join this tribe. I mean, I come from another tribe, and there it's different. The rules there are different. Things are fast. Things are it's something na very I appreciate it so much, and thank you. And if you guys are into keeping things human with AI imaging and technology, I'm all welcome to be a part of it.
Okay, so
For me.
yes. so meron naman tayo na pala dito. Okay, so next natin si Jilson, and then next si Jake.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Ayan. I think I'm just excited about what's yung mga tao na doesn't know how to draw. I don't know that they're not photographers, they're not an artist. I'm just excited what are they gonna produce, because right now in Mid-Journey and in Stable Diffusion, ang dami ko nakikita sobrang daming gandang artworks talaga, as in and I really see AI art as art because it's still in a way created by people, but yun nga yung copyright infringement lang talaga dun sa paggawa ng art. And also I'm really afraid about capitalism because the companies will really abuse this. I can say abuse. Will really use it like todo to profit their companies. It will be really useful for them to to produce art without the need of an artist, without the need of of a photographer, because some of them just needs just a poster for to post in Instagram, to post in Facebook. Because I've already seen Christmas greetings made in Mid Journey and being posted by bike shops, being posted by shops, and you really know that it's created in Mid Journey or any form of AI art because their hands are a lot. They have a lot of fingers. So yun yung pinaka nakikita ko sa mga AI art na nagpo-produce now with human figures. So it's a double-edged sword. That's, I think, is my last notion about AI art.
So yun, so yung double-edged sword, parang yun yung ano, one of the recurring themes din eh, na yun. So siguro for now, we just have to be aware of it, and then we respond accordingly. So, pero the future is open. It's tama ba? It's opaque in the sense that we cannot see through it. So anyway, so si Sir Jake.
Yeah, unang-una, thank you for inviting us and for the panel. Marami akong natutunan sa inyo. Especially, yun nga, kami ni Jilson, magkakasama na kami lagi. But the others, parang it's nice to meet you guys, and yung pag-articulate nyo ng ideas nyo, it's really helpful for me. Ayun, for ano naman, with regards to AI, mas excited ako than nervous. Or maybe just because parang ang daming ideas lang na to explore. Like, parang nagiging mas mabilis yung pag-process ng ideas and yung pag-create ng work. At the same time, parang same with parang same with Jeryc, nag-start ako as sa film photographer. So, yung technical power na kailangan mo to achieve your vision or your idea, parang hirap, sobrang mahal, sobrang tagal, ganyan. And then when digital came, yun nga, bumilis lahat, and yung ideas mo, mas mabilis mo nang ma-process. And now that AI is here, it's another level of parang, siguro yung exploration ng ideas, mas mabilis. So, I guess yung common thread nun is how do you make your ideas unique and yours alone? Or so I guess yun yung challenge na pwedeng i-put out natin sa isa't isa. How can you produce AI art, or AI, how can you use AI to your advantage or to advance your own ideas? Yeah, so yun lang.
Yun. So guys, siguro I owe a debt of gratitude for you being on the second episode. So parang for you're thinking, parang diba? I have to really say my gratitude, to express my gratitude na nag-join kayo, and this group, parang I think this is one of the more, I mean, personally, I don't know if you've seen any other conversations about AI na medyo fluid in a way, parang it's parang anything goes, pero hindi, may structure eh. Parang the fact that we have different specializations or may different fields tayo, instead of instead of our differences being parang a point of disagreement, parang ang nangyayari, parang lahat tayo natuto eh. I mean, ako rin, ang dami ko natutunan sa inyo, di ba? So salamat dahil pinagbigyan niyo ako dun sa invitation. So yun, so thank you for joining us tonight. Dun sa mga nag-join, kay Sir Jeryc, and also for those who are watching this after uploading. So thank you for taking time to view this video. So I hope in our aim sa Photography Chismis, parang ang dami ko no? Pero ako lang naman yun. So in the aim of with the aim of Photography Chismis is really to to contribute to the discourse. Parang at least man lang magkaroon ng lalim yung photography sa Philippines. Meron naman. I mean, no offense naman to the academics and also the practitioners, but having something parang a venue wherein we can have this kind of discussion in this format, kasi iba rin ang lecture sa discourse or at least conversation na kwentuhan. Iba yung tone, iba yung exploration. So again, thank you. And then siguro for those who are watching this again in video format, so we invite you for the next session naman. Actually, all Saturdays hanggang March, meron na tayong topic. So, ano na. And then, pero yung medyo for now, yung medyo ipo-plug ko is yung kay Dr. Barbasa sa February 11. So, ang discussion naman nun is philosophy of photography. Ang introductory text nun is that in other countries, the discussion of photography is in the arena or in the framing of philosophy na. It's in the area of philosophy na. So although syempre the technical side syempre it persists yung discussions about composition, the camera, the technology. Pero in other countries, for example, the British Journal of Photography, they have a separate dedicated department that does philosophy of photography. And I think with Dr. Verbasa and that initiative in Ateneo would formalize. Kasi tayo naman, like for example, Sir Jeryc and myself, when we teach photography, syempre, a huge part of it, the foundational ideas are also philosophical. Pero having a philosophy department, institutionalizing that kind of framing, that framework, that discussion, then now, I mean, it's good to be, it's great to be in the field of photography right now. It's exciting, diba? So with that, so again, thank you everyone. So salamat sa pagpunta and see you in the next kwentuhan. So bye.
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 Thank you.
Bye, everyone. Be safe out
Bye.
there.
Bye-bye. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.